What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Outfielder podcast, episode 112, brought to you by Sensibly Loud Media. I am your host, J-Mac, a.k.a. founder numero uno. Ben Baseball is out of the office this evening, but I am joined by my co-host, who is in the on-deck circle. Let's see what's going on with him.
Ladies and gentlemen, now batting cleanup for the Outfielder podcast, number 3, the Great Sambino.
Good evening, Sam.
Howdy.
We talk again.
I like the way you put that. For some reason, that made me laugh. We talk again.
We do. That's all there is to say these days. No, snow runner the other day for game night. That was a lot of fun, and we're back here doing the show. It feels like we hadn't gotten too far from where we left off last time.
No, and I've got to say, it was kind of nice to talk about something that wasn't baseball and really get into it just as deep as I do with baseball.
Yes, indeed, because there is no baseball that is happening anytime soon other than like KBO baseball.
It's true, and I have very few hobbies, but I'm intently and deeply interested in those. They are as follows: cooking, baseball, cars, and video games.
Yes.
I know a lot about all those things, and SnowRunner encompasses 2 of those things. So I'm like super nerd about that.
It's pretty good. I'm like officially all hooked into it. You know, been playing for a couple of weeks, so I kind of know what's going on now. I'm actually accomplishing things now without just absolutely wrecking the hell out of everything, like turning over trailers and, you know, all of that, you know, all the shit that comes along with it. And if you watch the stream, which is out there on YouTube and everything still, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It, you know, it's a maddeningly frustrating game, but it was great to do for game night.
Once you get your momentum going, it's really quite a different game.
It really is. I've got to figure out, I'm working on figuring this out, but I got to figure out how we get my PlayStation hooked up so we can do like MLB The Show kind of thing as well.
Yeah, for sure. There's got to be a way.
Oh, there is. I'll get it worked out over the weekend. It's only like Monday night, so, you know, that buys me some time, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Long day. Doesn't feel like Monday. Feels like Thursday. It isn't.
It's definitely not. I know. I wish we could all take days off like Ben Baseball. No, I'm just kidding. Ben Baseball has terrible internet, so he's not here, unfortunately.
Did he look in the hole for internet?
Well, he doesn't live there anymore. They bought a house. They don't live in that shack thing anymore.
I just thought for sure he would buy a house with holes. So
well, no, he's gonna dig them, I think. I would like to know that though. He moved in like, I think it was something like February. It was like right when this whole thing started, the whole quarantine thing started, and so I'd be interested to know if he's dug any holes since he's moved in.
I too would be interested.
Yes,
surely they're vast.
These are the things that we ponder when baseball's not happening. It's a torturous life.
And when I just sit in the same room all day, every day.
Yeah, I know. I've started like going down weird rabbit holes. Like you were sending me truck videos earlier, and like I've been kind of going into like weird informational rabbit holes and things that, you know, I maybe haven't had as much time to you know, learn about or whatever, and just taking the time to really, I don't know, just spend that time enriching myself, I guess.
That's exactly what I was going to say. You're enriching your life, and there's nothing wrong with that when you've got the time and there's nothing else to do. I mean, it's not like you're ignoring other responsibilities or other obligations. You're just like, well, okay, here we go.
Right. It's exactly. I mean, I wouldn't say always not ignoring the responsibilities, but most of the time, you know,
yeah,
we keep it within reason.
Real 55, 65, 55, 45 kind of guy.
Exactly. Like there's definitely room for wiggle here. There's got to be room for interpretation. You know, and when you start blurring the lines of like working at home versus just being at home all the time, it just, those lines do start to blur a little bit in different ways.
Yeah, totally. It's been interesting.
It plays right into my whole, like, I don't like to deal with people thing. So there's that. Good thing I host a podcast, right? No, I was talking to my wife about this the other day. I actually feel like I kind of miss people, and I miss like just kind of being around like just an environment where, I don't know, just people are kind of around having fun, not so concerned. And you know what would have been perfect to be doing right now is going to a baseball game.
Yeah, indoors too.
Indoors, can't do it.
Yeah, I feel you. I too, like, I don't hate people. I just like don't need them.
Correct.
guess.
That's
Yeah,
what
it's indifference, like gross indifference. And I feel the same way. It's like, I wish I could go do a thing, but whatever.
For sure. Yeah, it's not necessarily the people that really bother me overall. I think that's a good way to describe it, is just sheer indifference. I could just do without, kind of thing. But you know, it's all good. And like I still feel like connected to like you guys and stuff. I talk to you all the time. Like I talk to Ben all the time. You know, we're doing fine here.
I would just rather be enriching my life with truck lore.
Yeah, or baseball. Once again, I keep bringing us back to the baseball part of it.
Sure, fine.
It is tough, you know. I mean, it doesn't sound like a deal's going to get done. It seems like both sides are incredibly far apart to me.
No, I think we're not going to see baseball this year.
Like, I don't. So I guess the owners have been backing down off the high horse of wanting only like they. I guess the whole thing has been that they haven't wanted to shorten the season, which I get because it's revenue that you're trying to replace through television and all that stuff, right? On the other side of that, though, like at some point, we're like into June here. Like it can't just keep being kicked down the road forever. And so
it can't be a winter sport. It can't be a winter sport.
It can't not be. And like it's already strange enough in like the early parts of spring, or the late parts of spring, I guess, and the early like parts of, or the later parts of fall when it gets really cold too. Like that, those are already elements that they do deal with, but it's just not one of those sports that can really be played in the cold effectively.
Totally agree. And it just gets in the way of all the other sports too. Like everyone's got their space, their little cubby hole time wise. And we need to stick to that.
For sure. So, I mean, it's definitely a shame, but it seems like the owners are really starting to kind of go back on that a little bit and starting to maybe negotiate. But I mean, for the players to think, well, so like I think at this point we're not getting started by July 4th, no matter what happens.
That's 3 weeks away.
Right. We're well past that. Right. So like if you want to start by mid-July, like they've got to get going now, and they're not anywhere close to anything. And it sounds like they're starting to kind of maybe bridge that gap a little bit, but like a shortened season is going to happen if a season's going to happen.
Yeah, totally. I mean, there's no way that they can play even 100 games at this point in reasonable, like in calendar year, right?
Correct. Let me ask you this. So obviously the owners are concerned about like, so if you have more games, more chances at revenue, right? If you were to shorten the season down to 50 or 60 games, don't you think that if you were able to properly market that the right way, that you could actually replace some of that revenue with peeling eyeballs off of things and more towards your sport?
Some of it, yeah, but they're not going to get all of it. And I think you're
not going to get all of it no matter what happens here.
No, but again, these owners think that they can't lose. Like they're not allowed to take a loss on these teams.
Yeah.
That's not how businesses work.
Correct. And it's one of those things where they don't seem to want to acknowledge that for whatever reason. And I get that you want to, I mean, these owners in the league already want to squeeze blood out of every turnip that they possibly can. Right out of like before this even started, right?
I like that expression.
It's great, and it's so fitting here too. But we're already past the point of really coming to an agreement that's probably going to make everybody happy. I don't really know. Like this is just a really bad thing leading up into negotiations of a collective bargaining agreement.
It's not a good look, and it's not going well. The owners, everyone's about self-interest, right? The players are interested in themselves. The owners are interested in themselves. They're all saying it, knowing that they're doing like the fans and baseball a service, but it's all just about what they want. It's not.
They're not. Like that,
there would be compromise if that were the case.
For sure. And again, we've talked about where we kind of stand on this issue, and I just think that there's a big part of this too where I was kind of thinking about this today. Like you have this weird thing where like the owners feel one way and the players union feels the other way. And like typically in those kinds of situations, you have some sort of outside pressure that forces something to happen, some side to cave. I don't think that there are enough fans that really give a shit that much to raise that much of a stink to where either side feel pressured at all.
And do we think it would be about the fans saying, hey, I want baseball? I
think it would help.
Sure.
If you started sitting out there being like, the NBA can get this done, Major League Soccer can get this done, National Hockey League can get this done, the NFL is going to play. Why can't you get this done?
So I have an probably unpopular, really just a stupid idea or thought.
Let's go.
And I don't mean to make this political, but if George Bush II were president still during this time, I bet he would get baseball going.
I bet you're right.
Because he was an owner.
I know.
Owner for a while.
My head went to him throwing out the first pitch at the Yankee game right after 9/11.
Yeah, I think he would get it done. He would find a way to make that a thing. And he would probably say it more often than anybody else. Like, hey, can't we just get baseball back already?
For sure. I feel like we're kind of at this point.
Ben would kill me for this.
What, my response to this?
No, what I said.
Oh, it's going to be great. I can't wait. I really feel like we're at this point where I just don't see how either team or either side is going to have enough pressure for this to really matter. And I really think that they're just going to talk themselves into a corner.
If you think about it, so we've lost April and May. It's early June. Not that much is lost. If we had our head on our shoulders and we had a plan, like this we could be locked and loaded. We could be sending hot dogs and buns to the stadiums right now.
Absolutely. And I think that's kind of where the NBA is and all this. Like, they don't really care how it gets done. They just want to play. And there's still some things they need to work out or whatever. But like, I mean, we haven't even begun that with baseball. And 2 months of revenue, like, it's a loss, but it's not a devastating loss if you just get both sides to put it in gear and decide what we're going to do and play. You know, and you know what? It sucks this year, maybe the next year. But like, the longer this goes on, the more it upsets the talent pipeline in baseball and, you know, guys' growth. And I mean, you think that, I mean, it's going to work out great for people like Chris Sale, who are going to probably be sitting all year after having Tommy John anyway. But like, other than that, like, I think that there's going to be a drastic decline in play in a lot of ways here. Yeah.
I mean, just before we jump into the play part, how good a decision was it for all these guys who pulled the trigger on surgeries when they said that the season was postponed? They were just like, it's going to be more than postponed. I bet it's like really, really postponed or canceled. And a lot of guys just said, fuck it, I'm getting TJ surgery or whatever.
Yeah. No, it was a great call. It was an absolutely great call. And no matter what happens, even if they fired up tomorrow to start playing again, it was still the right call. Because ultimately you're missing less time than you would have regardless.
Right. Now, the point you brought up around the like quality of play, I think is real, right?
And not talked about at all.
I don't think anybody cares.
I don't understand how that's possible. This is a major sport. I don't understand.
No one's thinking about that. They just want it back. We're thinking about, okay, well, maybe it'll be back, but what's it going to be like when it's back for the play? It's going to be pretty trash. Like, we had half of a spring training. These guys are like almost probably too rested. Their arm strengths are probably down. Hitters aren't seeing the ball at all.
I mean, you can see the ball up to a point, but I mean, you're not watching different major league pitchers every day.
Right.
You know, and you can only simulate so much.
Some would say if you don't use it, you lose it.
Mm-hmm. That is a very good thing that people do say.
That's a Midtown quote right there from one of our episodes.
Oh yeah, I miss Jimmy Midtown. I know he misses baseball too. Yeah, I think that's something that's not being talked about though, and I don't even think about it from that standpoint of like what happens if it starts this year. So I mean, that all very, very valid points, and that is 100% true. But like, what happens if like we just don't have a season at all? What is next year going to look like? And the year after that, because guys are going to be like decimated with injury.
A lot of injury, a lot of out of shape guys, surely.
Man.
A lot of like terrible at bats.
It's going to be so bad to watch.
A lot of short outings for pitchers. A lot of errors.
A lot of errors, dude. Literally one of the worst things that could happen to a sport like baseball.
Yeah, it's all about like accumulated skill. And it's dropped off pretty quick if you don't use it.
Exactly. And not to like compare that up against what's going on, because obviously there are bigger issues in the world right now. But what I'm saying is, from a sports level, no, like every other sport could withstand this better than baseball.
Yeah, I think basketball players are going to be fine. Like their shots will be off, no doubt, similar to like hitting the ball at the plate, but not nearly as bad as that. Like they are in control of the shot,
right,
every time.
And like people bitch about like 162 games for a season and everything, but like, first of all, if you really follow baseball, it is a lot of games, but it's not that like it goes on for probably too long. Like we've talked about cutting the month of August out many times, August and September, really. But I still think that there's value in the season going on for that long because baseball is full of peaks and valleys. And yeah, injury is a risk, but like that's part of it. And so I get that mentality of it, but like you can't just take a year off as a professional athlete. That's just not really how it works.
It's going to go really poorly, I think.
Yeah, I hate it, man, because like I said, they're just not there's so many issues in baseball as it is to get to a point where it is just on the same level as like basketball, or I mean, you're not even close to NFL levels, but
No.
you know, the next one up, I guess, would be basketball. I don't really know where like the NHL falls in there, but regardless, like in popularity, you know, you're trying to claw your way to the top. You're already fighting a bunch of issues that you didn't really know how to solve for in the first place as a league, and now you've got shitty product on the field. It's gonna make it way worse.
Yeah, I mean, they should take this year and just solve a bunch of problems, but they're not going to do that.
So we're going to talk about that because we have long discussed what it would be like to have relegation in the MLB. And I threw some things together so we can discuss what that would look like. So we're going to talk about that later in the episode.
Yeah, I'm good with that. Gosh, it's going to be really bad.
Yeah, I know. Like the more you sit there and really critically think about the mechanics of what it's like to play on a day-to-day basis, and like like people don't like discount like the fact that, you know, these guys travel thousands of miles every year too. Like it's great to get a rest from that, but getting back, like just taking a year off from that and then just going back to it is going to be very tough on people. And if they were thinking about it the right way, if for whatever reason this season were to be canceled, they should really strongly consider what somewhat of a transition back into baseball would look like.
Now,
but they would have to. They should.
It'd be good if they had some sort of plan. Now, do you think MLB and the MLBPA will take this opportunity to like reset how things look outside of the CBA? Like, this is a good opportunity if you're taking a year off. Like, let's figure some shit out and see where we want to be in the future.
It's a good question. I don't really know.
It's the slow period, right? That's the time where you sort of like retool and like figure out what's going to go on in Q4 or whatever. Like if I'm thinking on an annual basis.
I'm with you. Like, and that seems logical, but that doesn't seem like the way they typically do business.
So true.
Every indication that I've ever gotten has led me to believe that they are not the most forward-thinking league in the world.
Very backwards looking. We love our stats and we love our history books.
Yeah, and like I love that argument of getting rid of 162 games and narrowing it down to maybe 135 or something like that, and just sawing off a little bit. And one of the main reasons that people will battle you on with that issue is that it'll mess up the stat books. That's crazy.
I don't care.
That's crazy talk.
Who cares?
Put a yellow line on what's it called, baseballreference.com, and move on.
It's not, it's a non-issue for me. I love the stats. We talk about the stats. I use them in my thought process for baseball, but whatever's going to be best for the sport should be done. And if that means trimming, 28 games off, let's do it.
So if you did that, like statistically in your mind, like how different would it really be? I don't think it would be that different, honestly.
We're still playing 9 innings a game, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Not that different.
And just take a proportion of home runs per game. Like who's better? Probably still Barry Bonds, but
huh? I said I've already done enough math for this episode of the show. So
yeah, sorry.
No, I'm with you. It's really not, though, is your point. Like it's proportionately, you're probably going to lose a little bit, but I mean, ultimately, you're still going to get the same picture of what kind of player they are when you look at the stats. So I
Right.
don't see the argument.
And let's just think about there's going to be three camps of players. There's going to be players that only encompassed 162, and they were great during that time. There's going to be players that will only encompass whatever 135 or however many games they trim it to, and they'll be great by that standard. I think we get into a little bit of trouble when we start judging people who occupy both eras, like your Bryce Harpers and your current McCutchens and stuff like that.
It's not that different. It's
not that different. Like, how good were they on that year versus this year? It's
now if you go to like 100 from 162 games to 90 games, all right. Now we're talking about the significance of statistics here. But like, come on, we're talking about
it's like here. Well, there's some expression. It's like around pornography. You know it when you see it. Like greatness, you know greatness when you see it, and you'll be like, Bryce Harper still good.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Same thing with Mike Trout. It's like still fucking good.
Right. Oh yeah. Let's just harp on Trout after we move to these truncated seasons. He's not going to be great anymore. Is that what you're saying? I don't think so.
Unbelievable, dude. People, yeah, we're not getting into that. It's so last I saw, I think overall they were proposing, MLB was proposing a 76 game season, and I think the players are thinking more like 50.
I'll take anything at this point.
I think I agree. I definitely agree. I'm quick to rush to the judgment of it though, because it just, the amount of whining that's going to go on whenever they make a play like that is going to be horrific.
I just don't say you don't want baseball. They're like critiquing the details of something that isn't currently in existence, right? Like there is no MLB, and you're bitching about less than what is proposed. Like,
right?
You know, that's like infinite n more than you're getting right now. Like, shut the fuck up.
It's a real cart leading the horse type situation. It really is. It's
just like, can we just? It's just outrage everywhere all the time. Rightfully so with some of the shit going on right now. But like, shut up with your bad takes about truncating the season too much.
It's absurd to think that no baseball is better than some baseball.
Yeah, that makes no sense.
I mean, are we that's what I want to know. I want to know, are these owners like, I am, and we've seen it before. Like, are they willing to say, I am willing to pull the plug on this whole damn thing if I don't get my way? I mean, I'd rather take a full loss of a year than, I don't know. That seems crazy to me.
Yeah, I think there's probably some amount of games that make it worth their while because there's upstart operational costs, like overhead associated with getting everyone, all the employees back and getting all the supplies and getting it cleaned, all that crap. I get it, but 50 games is like a third of a season. Still pretty good. I bet you're getting it.
100% with you. It's better than the nothing burger that you're going to get to make a point.
Yeah. Well, I need 82.5 games to shut the fuck up.
Statistically.
Why?
We're not getting into this. But yeah, no, it's absurd though. It really is. And it feels like just a bunch of whining. It really does. All right. Well, speaking of a bunch of whining, we did it last week. We've got a great reason to do it this week. Let's do the POS corner.
This is Paul Ramham from WBAT in Cincinnati. We interrupt this regular scheduled programming to bring you this breaking news bulletin. It appears that people have been called pieces of shit from around the globe. Baseball players in particular seem to be the main target. However, no person, concept, or universe is exempt from this cruel but very usual punishment. The perpetrator has been identified as the Great Sambino. Police have confirmed that he is still at large and about to take piece of shit corner.
Ding, ding, ding. Huge piece of shit.
Hello, America. Let's talk piece of shit, singular. This should be no surprise to anybody who's listened to us, but Angel Hernandez
got the bell back.
Somehow, without any baseball going on, he's managed to make an ass of himself.
This dude is the fucking worst, dude. Like we were about to do the show, and I looked at Sam and I was like, "The POS corner is a no-brainer, right?" And he was like, "Yep."
God, what an asshole!
So,
how many times? It's just like I'm exhausted by this guy. How many times has he been called out? Like at least three before this.
3 times. I mean, we've talked about him kind of ad nauseum as far as like just in general hatred towards this guy, but this guy's been in the POS corner like 5 times.
Yeah. Okay. So
third.
Should I break this? I'll break this down for everybody, I suppose.
All right.
Or should it just like that's just it? He's just like the inaugural inductee of the piece of shit Hall of Fame. His bust is going to be the statue out front, basically.
He's in the lead for sure at this point.
Okay, so Angel Hernandez in 2019, he was the crew chief of a Red Sox Tampa Bay Rays game. It was delayed for 20 minutes, seemingly because they didn't know how to interpret the rules. And the MLB, isn't that enough?
Yes.
Isn't that enough? That alone, I think that might have been one of the things that got him in. I'm not sure.
When I was reading this, it's like this one sentence here says the league was conducting an investigation into why a 2019 game between the Red Sox and the Rays was delayed for nearly 20 minutes over umpire confusion about rules. I was like, what? Isn't it their job to know the rules?
That's just not going to fly anywhere else. So Angel Hernandez, he's a very litigious man. He loves to get his lawyers involved and try and sue the MLB for not promoting him. But at the end of the day, he's just a bad umpire, and he forgot the rules last year during this game delayed for 20 minutes. There was an investigation that the MLB executed to sort of figure out what happened and why. So they called up Angel. They did like I guess it's like an informal deposition or some kind of interview as part of the investigation to figure out what went wrong. It was just Angel. And, they did the interview and then they're like, okay, you can go. Like, we don't need you anymore. You can hang up. He did not hang up. He did not hang up the phone. He stayed on the phone for his colleague to get on the line, and they interviewed that guy.
Yeah, they gave his deposition.
So effectively, Angel Hernandez was eavesdropping onto his own investigation on himself.
Right.
Which is just not okay.
So a couple of things here. First of all, so I'm assuming he did this. I don't understand how this actually happened, because typically whenever you call, so I guess it was like he called in like a conference call service kind of thing, and then they thought he dropped and then he just didn't. Is that kind of what it sounds like to you?
Yeah, it sounds like they didn't confirm that he left. They're like, okay, bye. And then they just like didn't do anything about it. It's not like the Zoom call where you can see the participants, or maybe it was and they weren't paying attention, but he stayed on. I mean, it's kind of on them to make sure. But he should be off.
So he should definitely be off, but he should know better. And I'm not trying to defend Angel Hernandez here by any stretch of the imagination, but like when you're doing an investigation, you got to be better than that. That doesn't give me a whole lot of confidence in the investigative bureau arm of MLB that we've learned about recently.
Yeah. Oh God. I want to read the statement from because it's like
the letter that Joe Torre wrote.
I mean, my God. I say, okay. So according to MLB legal filings Friday in the lawsuit, after the July 24 Rays Red Sox contest, the league under then Chief Baseball Officer Joe Torre launched an investigation into the confusion and interviewed the umpires involved in the game. Torre then later claimed that Hernandez did not get off the phone when his interview ended and listened to the interview of umpire Ed Hickok. MLB conducted a separate call with Hernandez on August 19 to question him on the alleged eavesdropping.
Awesome.
It's so bad. Like, it's so bad.
My favorite part of the whole thing was that Torre wrote in his letter that he'd be stripping Hernandez of his acting crew chief status. In response, Hernandez's lawyers said Angel Hernandez did not eavesdrop. He was invited onto that call, and MLB told Angel that he made the correct decision.
Yeah.
Oh, no. They didn't tell him that.
There's no way they told him. Oh, good job staying on the call there.
So this is kind of a general pet peeve of mine. I'm glad this is going to be a great tangent. I can't wait. When have we gotten to the point where we look at a blue pen and just say that's black or whatever? You know what I mean? Like, that's bullshit. Like, he clearly got caught doing this. Like to sit there and be like, well, he was invited and he was told he made the correct decision. They didn't strip him of his crew chief status for no reason. They don't just hand out penalties like that. Baseball's not great at handing out penalties in the first place.
No, and the MLB cites like a number of just a couple of incidents involving him. One of which was a 2018 Yankees Red Sox game in which he missed 3 calls in the first 4 innings.
Brutal. Absolutely brutal. So like we've talked so much, like we were even mentioning it last episode. We talked so much about like how we wish we could measure umpires in a better way.
Yeah.
And it's really nearly impossible to do. But like this dude should not be an umpire because there are so many times where his bias comes into play, and it's honestly against my team a lot. And that pisses me off to the highest order.
Yeah. And for that reason, he's a real piece of shit for like the fourth time, probably third, fourth time.
Third or fourth time. That's good. Yeah. A real piece of work.
And he'd probably get all litigious and try and sue us, but
Fuck him.
that would be another one of those instances where like pen is blue, not black. He would just be like, do we really live in a world where this guy's going to get on me for calling him out?
Bring it the fuck on is all I can tell you. I will exploit that for content until I'm blue in the face.
So are you going to get into Mr. Santana this evening?
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah. So I did a little bit of background work on this. Okay.
Okay, good.
So last week on the show, he actually came up. And I haven't listened back. I never listened back to the episode, so I don't specifically remember how. But he came up on one of the last, like, it may have been the show before that, but within our last 2 or 3 episodes. And so I saw on Twitter that a couple of our listeners were talking about a couple of the people that we had mentioned. So we had talked about Torrey Hunter last week, and they were talking about Irvin Santana. And he randomly follows me on Twitter today, and it's definitely him. Like it's his account.
He's a blue check guy.
He's a blue check guy. And I was absolutely stunned, and I have no reason to think that he should be following me in any way. But I'm going to pursue this. I'm going to try to get him on the show.
I would love that. I like Irvin Santana. We're pretty big on the Twins recently too, so maybe that caught wind somewhere.
Very much so. I think that had a big part to do with it. And it was funny. I think I was even praising him because he's actually was always one of my favorite fantasy players because he just got on base a lot, a lot of doubles, things like that, where he didn't necessarily show the value on the field like normal, but sometimes those people, depending on how you have your fantasy baseball league set up, are really, really valuable.
He's a pitcher though.
Oh, I'm sorry. What am I talking about?
I don't know. Torrey Hunter, maybe.
Torrey Hunter, I guess. Yeah.
You were talking about Torrey Hunter that way.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I was saying. My bad. My fault.
I had to look it up. I was like, am I fucking crazy right now?
Yeah, but he was a good pitcher too, though, because
workhorse guy.
Exactly. A long inning guy. He usually went deep into games and struck out a lot of guys. So pretty good.
And he had a 3, 4, 5 years in Minnesota, and maybe there was some overlap with Hunter. I'm not sure.
Something like that. I can't remember exactly. But anyway, I was shocked whenever he followed me. So we're going to try to back that up and maybe leverage that into guy coming on the show. Pretty awesome.
That'd be awesome.
So we stay tuned and make a stink about it. Help us get him on. So something we've been talking about on the show for a long time is what the MLB would look like if we were to structure it differently, where teams were relegated every season to the minor league.
This is the part where Ben says something about like the mud poodles.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yes. Is it the sod poodles, I think, actually?
Sod poodles. Yeah, you're right.
Still, something along those lines. So, like, I really wanted to think about the most logical way to do this. And so we've actually, we were joking last week that you could actually make a show off of things that we've talked about doing and that we said we'll get around to that we haven't. Well, this is one of those scenarios where we've been talking about this for a while, and we keep kind of teasing it and everything. And truthfully, I'll kind of give you guys a little bit more background into my thinking on this. I had a couple of seasons modeled out, but then the Astros cheating scandal broke, and it kind of felt like some of that data was a little tainted in a lot of ways and was going to kind of be overshadowed. So I actually went back and I listed out all the rules, so we'll go through what all the rules look like and how it would be structured. And then I used 2016's results to look at what 2017 would look like.
Okay.
So do me a favor, Baseball Reference, pull up the season for
2016 season.
Yes. And just so we have it armed and ready. So I kind of want to explain how the European, like there's basically the soccer league, like EPL, is structured, and kind of like what that all looks like. And it's interesting because it is one of the closest things to Major League Baseball in terms of how you have somewhat of a farm system. And so essentially you have the EPL, the English Premier League. So these are all the big teams that you always hear about, your United, Liverpool, all those, the big market teams that we typically hear about whenever we hear about soccer, even if we don't know a ton about it. The way the league is structured is you have in the Premier League, which would be your Major League Baseball. In this case, you have 20 teams. And then you have a league below that, which would be your baseball equivalent of minor leagues. And they call it the Football League Championship. And that's got 24 teams in it. And the way that they structure this is that every single year, the bottom three in the top club, in the MLB in this case, would move to the minor league in that case. And then, teams would move up and vice versa. So they'd be relegated based on their previous performance.
Love it.
It's an interesting concept, and it's something that's actually pretty easily moldable if you really think about how baseball is structured without changing a whole lot. Now, I want to state that you have to open up your mind a little bit on some of this stuff because it's not perfect. And I did the best that I could to come up with realistic probability scenarios here to really get to like what results could actually look like. But you do have to kind of bag some assumptions of what you know about baseball right now. And so keep that in mind. I'll break down a couple of the things to think about. But essentially, I'm going to describe what baseball would look like under this system.
Great.
Cool?
Yeah, awesome.
Currently, we have 30 teams in baseball, right? So I just went on that assumption as well. So we have 30 total teams. Every season, you have 20 teams in Major League Baseball, in the MLB. Okay? The bottom 10 teams of those would be in something called the Baseball Champions League or the minor league or whatever you want to call it. That'd be like, we'll call it the minor league. How about that?
Okay.
So you with me so far? So 30 total teams, 20 in the top, 10 in the bottom.
I will reserve commentary until you finish initial discussion.
Okay. Sounds good. But does that make sense?
Yes, I'm with you.
All right, sounds good. You have no AL or NL. None of that matters. You have 4 divisions based on geographical location. You have the bottom 4 teams in the MLB would be relegated to the minor leagues. The top 3 teams in the minor leagues would enter the MLB based on the previous season's standings and records.
Not with you, math-wise.
Well,
so we got 20 teams.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't like. Okay, go ahead. Keep going.
We'll get there. I'll spell it out. But these are just kind of baseline rules. Basically, you have 4 teams that are relegated, and then top 3. And then your top 3 are coming up. Now, the next 4 teams in the standings would play a 4-team single elimination tournament for the 4th promotion spot to Major League Baseball.
Ooh, cool.
Okay. And like I said, I'll go over some actual, like what happened based on where we were in the season, or based on what the season ended up in 2016 for what 2017 would be shaped like. Each team in both leagues play 135 games, 135 game schedule. So exactly what we were talking about earlier. Okay. MLB will play their 4 division rivals 15 times each. The remaining 15 teams would be played 5 times each. In the minor leagues, those teams would play divisional rivals 20 times, and the remaining interdivision teams would each be played 11 times.
Cool.
Playoffs would mostly be the same. Top 10 clubs play each other, seeded 1 through 10. One wild card game would go to the 8. Basically, one wild card game would be to the field of 8 teams, which we'll get into here in a minute.
Okay.
All right, so those are our baseline ground rules. Any questions?
So you're dropping a third of the. You're just going to drop the bottom third of teams, and that's like an initial move, right? It's
Right.
like, all right, if we were to do this, we're going to take the Orioles and the Blue Jays, probably the Rangers. Just be like,
Yep, cut them out.
Here.
The minors, and then the best teams, the 3 best teams in the minors come up, and then the 4th spot is a single elimination tournament for that to replace it.
Interesting.
So between the minors and the majors on a year-to-year basis.
If they move to the minors, there's going to be like quite a bit of revenue loss, and that team will never be the same.
Well, and again, you have to suspend what you kind of know about.
Okay.
But
Yeah, fair.
But like, isn't that enough incentive not to be bad? You have no salary cap in this league.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, this really does discourage tanking. Is really what happens here. So essentially, if you're going to be bad, you're not going to be in the majors in the following year. So it makes sense to try to field a good product. Now, it's not going to always work out, but ultimately, I mean, if you're really bad, like if you're the Tigers bad, where they won what we've looked at this several times,
It was like 50 games or something. It was so bad.
Like people didn't go to those games.
No.
So like what? I mean, they may as well be a minor league team, and so it increases competition from top to bottom. You're always going to have your big spenders. There's no way to get around that. But in this system, there's a pretty big discouragement of tanking.
What are the 4 divisions?
I'll get into that in just a second because that's going to depend on a year-to-year basis.
Oh, God, that's much too complicated for MLB management.
Oh, no. All of this is far out of MLB's reach. I'm just going to say that right now. All right. So I want to kind of run over one other thing about the model, and that's really how I assigned winning percentages and how I assigned like rankings, I guess. So I basically use head-to-head results in these simulations. I basically use team winning percentages against one another to determine number assignments. So, for example, if you have a situation in the season where the Yankees beat Boston 2 out of 3 times, right? New York has statistically a 66% winning percentage there. You basically say, okay, you take a random number draw, 1 out of 100, say 66 or lower, New York wins, 67 or higher, Boston wins, et cetera, et cetera.
I'm with you.
Okay. So that's just kind of what the model's based on to be able to find what competition would actually look like. And that really only matters in one specific way. So we're going to use 2016 results, and we're going to put them into this model that we've talked about here that we've constructed. And we're going to see what 2017 would look like.
Okay.
All right. So I essentially, remember, we have 20 teams. So we have 30 teams overall, 20 teams in Major League Baseball. We've got to determine the teams that get relegated and the ones that come up, right?
You're a madman.
I'm amazing at this. This is what I live for. All right. So I essentially took straight up winning percentages from the 2016 season and got the 1 through 16 seats. That was done. That was easy. Because you're taking the whole league and seeding it 1 through 30 based on their winning percentages.
Okay.
Okay. So you have essentially, so tell you what, you have the 2016 results right there. Do you have winning percentages? Can you list it by rank it by winning percentage?
I do have winning percentages. Okay, you ready?
You're 1 through 16 there.
1 through 16.
Yes.
All right, the Cubs.
Mm-hmm.
Do you need the number?
I mean, yeah, that's fine. Number 1 is the Cubs.
Oh no, you don't need the percentage.
Oh, no, it doesn't really matter because these are just
okay, yeah,
straight up based on the total pool of talent.
Okay, great. Yeah. So, wow, that's incredible. Now that I look at these numbers, I really don't believe it. Chicago, they won the World Series.
Correct.
The Nationals, number 2. The Rangers, number 3.
Hmm?
Are we sure about that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Having all those fluky wins. Remember, they had like a negative run differential, but they had all those wins.
They were just very clutch. Sorry. So let me start it from the top. I'm just going to go all the way down without any commentary. Right. Cubs, Nationals, Rangers, Indians, Red Sox, Dodgers, Blue Jays, Orioles, Mets, Giants, Tigers, Mariners, St. Louis, Cardinals. Wow, that took me a second.
Dude, honestly, the same thing happened to me earlier. We shut them out of our brains. All right.
Right. Astros, Yankees, Royals.
Perfect. That's exactly what I have. Those are secured spots going into the 2017 season. All those teams have already earned their way in.
Great.
All right. So that knocks a whole lot of teams off our list. So I'm just going to list the rest of them just so we kind of know where we are based on winning percentages. We have Miami, Pittsburgh, the White Sox, the Rockies, the Angels, the Brewers, the Phillies, the D-backs, the A's, the Braves, the Reds, the Padres, the Rays, and Minnesota.
Ooh, okay. I thought we were going to talk well about Minnesota. What happened?
Went off the rails. All right.
2016, 4 years ago. Pre-COVID. Doesn't count.
Exactly. So we've got 1 through 16. What we really ultimately need to get to is who is going to be relegated to the minors, who's going to be promoted to the majors, who's going to win that 4th promotion spot to get promoted to the majors, and then we need to know who the minor teams are.
Okay.
Right? All right. So, with me so far? Awesome.
I'm with you. I have a question, but I don't think it enters into how this works right away.
Do you want to get it out now, or do you want to wait?
I don't want to throw you, but I do want to ask it.
Go ahead.
What about the existing minor teams?
Well, so essentially everything would kind of move down a level is probably what that would look like.
So they're in the sub majors. They're down in the sewer. It's in the toilet.
Right. You kind of have to suspend the reality of what we know things to look like right now.
Because I would love it if we relegated like the Padres to go be in the minors and play against like
bring up the sod. You know, you earned your way up. Like that's how it should work, right?
Right. Yeah. Are they just part of the gang now?
Yes, that's how this would work.
Cool.
All right. So the randomness or the insanity that this can breed is incredible. All right. So based on the 2016 season, we have the Marlins are getting relegated, Pittsburgh's getting relegated, the White Sox are getting relegated, and Colorado's getting relegated. They're all going down to the minors. They sucked in 2016, 2017. They haven't earned the right to play in the majors.
Okay.
That stinks, first of all. All right. So then we've got to
Pittsburgh stinks. It's the truth.
I know, right? So we have those 4 that are going to be relegated. The next 4 on the list by our winning percentages of where they're at. So we have the Angels, Milwaukee, and Philly are going up to the majors. Okay. And now we have a 4th spot that we have to contend with.
I like that those 3 teams make it up because those are exciting teams right now.
Agreed. Like that. And in theory, if you're good enough, this shouldn't matter.
Right.
So spend or, do what you have to. All right. So we have to do our head-to-head tournament between 4 teams. Okay. So essentially the way this is modeled is you have a shot to make the playoffs. To make the major leagues based on this single elimination tournament. And you basically have to take the next 4 teams in line, which would be Arizona, Oakland, Atlanta, and Cincinnati.
Ooh, that's so cool.
So you've got 3 teams only that are guaranteed to be going down, other than the ones that were dead last in the MLB the year before that.
Okay.
So really, there's a lot at play here for a lot of teams, right?
Right. Yeah. Things matter. Things matter here. I'm getting sweaty palms just thinking about the Rangers getting relegated.
I'm telling you. I would. Oh my God, I'd be so mad. All right. So, all right. Well, so I put together the tournament to see what this would look like, and what we have is the way I decided to do it was I just went down the line, and the teams that were ahead of the next 2 teams, so 25 and 26, which would have been Oakland and Atlanta, are going to have home field advantage versus the next 2 on the list, which would be Atlanta and Cincinnati. I figured that was fair. Home field, you have to get a little bit of an advantage in there. So I built it an extra 5% just for a little bit of home field advantage in a tournament. Okay.
Sure.
But something had to basically sway this one way or the other. All right. So in the first round of the head-to-head tournament, that determines the 4th spot in the final team, number 20 in the Major League Baseball season of 2017, we start the tournament. We have Arizona versus Cincinnati. I'll always say Cincinnati now. Just
got it.
I built in the extra 5%. This in the 2016 season, they were head-to-head. I took their head-to-head record, which was 3-3. So they were 50-50 against each other.
You really did have to add in the home field.
Well, and I was going to do that regardless because I felt like something had to kind of be a bit of a variable here to help. And they've earned that, obviously. So basically, you have a 55% chance of Arizona winning this game, a 45% chance of Cincinnati winning. You randomly select a number 1 through 100. I selected the number 13, so Arizona won that category.
Okay.
The next matchup we have in round 1 is Oakland versus Atlanta.
2016 players. Ooh.
We're really not great. So there were no head-to-head record here just because it is interleague play. So I basically used their interleague records for odds. So, and I put obviously Oakland was the only edge that Oakland had was that they had the 5% built in for the home field advantage. So do what?
The poopy smell at home field.
Exactly. If you don't know what that is, go look for it. It's great. Oakland had a 7-13 interleague play record. Atlanta had 8-12 in interleague play. So that sets the odds at 52 or below. Oakland wins 53 or higher. Atlanta wins. Randomly generated number 96. Atlanta wins. Moving on to the final round for number 20 spot, you have Arizona versus the Braves. Pretty good. Their head-to-head record in 2016 was 5-2 in favor of Arizona. That Arizona team was really good. That was when they still had JT Martinez and all that.
And Paul Goldschmidt.
And oh my God, yeah, that team was loaded with talent.
Forearms, I call them.
Oh my God. We never really got around to measuring things in his forearm sizes, but that's something we should add to the list.
No, that was definitely on the list for this year, but it's totally fucked now.
We didn't have a season. All right, so a 5-2 record favoring Arizona. That gives them a 71% chance. We drew a random number. We drew 48. Arizona wins the tournament and gets the final spot in the 2017 season.
This is cool. Do you know how exciting this would be?
It'd be
Everything would matter. The people there's not just like playoffs. There's like playoffs to get into the league next year.
Right. Like it's like a minor set of playoffs. So you asked about the divisions. So in this scenario, going into the 2017 season, you'd have the MLB North, which would be Toronto, Detroit, Philly, Milwaukee, and Cleveland. You have the MLB Central, which would be Houston, the Cubs, St. Louis, Texas, and Kansas City.
Okay.
You'd have the MLB West, which would be the Giants, Seattle, the Angels, the Dodgers, and the Diamondbacks. That's much better competition for the Dodgers, I think, overall. And the MLB East would be the Yankees, the Mets, Baltimore, the Nationals, and Boston.
That's so cool. So yeah, I guess it makes more sense now with when you said the divisions would change. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about?
What? Yeah. And then in the minors, you would have the just an East and a West. You'd have Padres, Colorado, Oakland, the White Sox, Minnesota, and then you'd have an East, Atlanta, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Miami, Tampa Bay.
So it's really cool. It's really fun. I think if this had been going on for a long time before change was so impossible for us to overcome, we would have like baseball hooligans who are like super pumped about Pittsburgh maybe making it up this year. Like, Chelsea over in the EPL. Yeah.
Well, and you think about that though, and like like this can mean a significant revenue bump even if you manage to get in for a year. So it's within their best interest to try to be good.
Right. I think you would just see the same teams, right? These days you'd see the Cubs, the Dodgers, the Red Sox, the Yankees. I guess that's probably not too dissimilar from other leagues that do relegation where it's like, yes, Manchester United is still in.
Right. Exactly. Like you're going to have your stalwarts that are probably almost always in. It's going to be
your Doosan Bears.
right. Exactly.
It's a KBO team.
It is. It is.
They're 19-6. They're doing pretty good.
They're not too bad. How are your guys doing?
Oh, it's incredible. Last I looked. Let me pull this in. I don't want to detract from this too much, but KBO talk. NC Dinos are 23-6.
Pretty good.
Doosan is 19-10. That's the second place team. So NC Dinos crushing.
We picked the right teams. Is what it seems like.
You sure did. You did it based on historicals. I did it based on names.
Yes, and I like that strategy.
It's just panned out this time.
But yeah, man, I think relegation would be awesome if they.
Oh my god, how much fun would that be?
And just the fact that you wouldn't have the same matchups every year, like you'd have the chance to have strange rivalries that you wouldn't normally have. Like Oakland's incredible, like kind of a perennial like fringe team. They're kind of like Tampa Bay.
Everybody's a rival.
Right. They're kind of like Tampa Bay in a lot of ways. They're always kind of around to make a little bit of noise, but never really can get over the hump kind of thing. And
yeah,
those teams matter. And like, it just, I find it absurd that teams like the Padres have just remained irrelevant for so long. I don't know how, I don't understand that.
I don't get it either. I like the idea of forming new rivalries and mixing up the matchups. I will say that it might detract from the ability to form long-term rivalries. Like if the Yankees-Red Sox rivalry didn't already exist, would something like that exist in this framework if it had been going on for 50 years, you know? Maybe so, with the playoff picture being the same for some of those teams, but
I mean, I would definitely be making fun of Yankees fans for their team not being in the MLB, and they'd be making fun of me for the same thing if that were the case. So, I mean,
oh man, how good would that be if someone like the Yankees didn't make it into the MLB? That'd be so great.
It'd be fantastic. It's an interesting concept, and it's something that I was kind of brought to my attention a little while back, and I really started to kind of map out how I thought the best way to hammer it out would be and what's fair and based on what they actually do. And like I was saying before, like the Astros, I feel like kind of convoluted the data past this kind of scenario, but that's okay. I mean, it's probably not worth going into a billion simulations anyway, but
this is so cool. I'm glad you put the work in to make that happen, because this is like super worth discussing. And God, if we were in charge, we'd probably mix things up maybe too much.
Oh, certainly.
We'd get NC Dinos over here to play some games, like relegate one team upward.
International relegation. Now there's an idea.
Don't hit too many dongs, Dino dongs.
Imagine if you had some sort of agreement between like MLB, the Nippon League, and KB, you know, like an international, almost like FIFA kind of situation where you have the corruption would be through the roof, though.
Oh, it'd be unbelievably fun, though.
Oh, it'd be great. I just think anything that's going to increase international competition would probably be worth its while, but I doubt that anybody would see that.
Totally off topic, but you mentioned FIFA, so I was thinking about international sports. I'm going to miss the Olympics. Those should be on right now, right? Or soon?
July, I think, is when they were.
Oh, God, I love the Olympics. And I don't care how corrupt it is. They're fun to watch. International competition.
I agree. I've just never been an Olympics guy. I'm much more of a Summer Olympics guy.
I like both of them equally, I think. But I like outside of the corruption and how shitty like the IOC is, and just like FIFA, watching young people who've like prepared their whole life to go compete at this Olympics is really something else. It's like truly what I think sports are about.
Yeah.
But we won't get that this year, so it's super sad.
I think they're just pushing it back 1 year, though, right?
Well, they're going to hope that we get a vaccine or something so that it'll happen next year, but we'll see.
It's a good point. I think we're all kind of in that boat right now.
Yeah, sorry, way off topic, but sports related at least.
Yeah, but I know what you mean. And like I think the idea here is, and like discussing things like this and hammering it out is really, it's our way of trying to think through what can make competition better. And you know, I hate to see teams do what the Marlins have done, where they had a roster full of talent that they weren't really sure how it was going to work, and they just burnt it all down for no reason. And I understand the logic in that. I really do, because there is a method to the madness of starting young and just trying to draft well and build a young team as best you can and supplement it with stars. And that's really the best way to build a championship team. I just think that a lot of owners don't really see the need to spend a lot of money because they're not getting as much TV revenue, and they're not,
Right.
they're going to get that money no matter what happens, really, at the end of the day, whether they spend or not. And that's sad to me.
I think it's super sad too. Yeah, no, I'm not about that tanking aspect.
It's easy for us to say, but I also don't feel like I really don't feel like writing a $400 million check to Bryce Harper. So
I get it.
I mean, it's easy for us to say, but I do think it's one of those things. I guess I just don't really understand if you as an owner really value these franchises as an investment, then why would you half-ass spend when, like, I'm not saying spending is always the answer because we've seen that blow up in faces too, but I mean, spend on basic things that make the player experience notable and, basically make your club a place that players want to be. I just don't understand that.
I think they're just banking on it appreciating over time, which it has historically done.
Absolutely, and that's great, but it sucks for the long term of the actual health of the sport.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, it's only worth something for so long while eyes are on it. Other than that, like we talked about this, more towards the top of the show, but I can't get over the failed logic of not changing just because we've always done things the same way. I think that's so stupid and crazy and narrow-minded. And it's like while I understand like it stinks to spend that kind of money, a rising tide rises all boats. Like it really does. And it's for the better of the sport. If you just invest in it a little bit more, you've already got $1 billion into it or whatever.
Right. And the way I think about it is saying that you're doing something just because that's the way it's always been done is like, no shit, historically the worst reason to do a thing.
Absolutely.
Like, look at any bad thing that's happened in history. Like, well, it's just kind of how we've done it. You're like, shut up. Stop it.
Stop with that stupid logic. It's dumb logic. It's no logic. It's lazy thinking is what it is.
Right. And it's comfort and familiarity.
Right. And I understand that. Like, I don't, and don't get me wrong. We talk on the show a lot about how we would change the game. And, we were just joking about how if we were in charge, we'd probably change too much. But honestly, change has to come incrementally. And you have to get people used to it. But just sitting on your hands and not doing it because it's easier is ridiculous.
Right. That's the easy game, just waiting.
Right. And I just, and now we get to times like this where it's like, I keep going back to the NBA because I look at the difference in how the owners of the NBA handled it. Did they all handle it perfectly? No. But you know what? Like most of them understood that it's an investment that we don't always all make money on. And sometimes we're going to take a loss and we're going to do the best as a league that we can to get back to business and try to make this thing go again and make as much money as we can, because at the end of the day, it's an entertainment product, but it's an investment for these guys.
Totally. Yeah. You're a business owner. You are giving a lot of people jobs.
Right. So it's an interesting thought exercise for sure. We'll do more of this if the listeners like it. I think it's worth hammering.
Thought-provoking and insightful. Thanks.
I never thought all those college statistics things would come in handy, but here we are. Not that they don't for other reasons. All right, well, we're going to get out of here. Hopefully, we said this last week, and Ben Baseball was not back, but I'm hoping he'll be back with us this coming week. No more internet issues for Ben Baseball, hopefully. So we want to remind everybody to check out our website. That's sensiblyloud.com. Make sure to follow us on social media, Sensibly Loud Media on Facebook, at Sensibly Loud on Instagram and on Twitter. We also want to thank everyone for tuning in for episode 112 of the Outfielder podcast. We'd like to thank all of our fans, Sensibly Loud Media, our sponsors, and those with the sharp eye to keep the runners close. Ground crew, please keep patrolling that outfield. Big ups to Kevin Towers. Don't text and drive. We'll see you right back here next time on the Outfielder podcast.